A production environment in 2025. TLS at every ingress point, every client connection encrypted, the certificate chain verified. JWT verification at the API gateway. Every inbound request carries a signed token, validated before it reaches any service. Mutual TLS on the most sensitive internal service paths. Both sides present certificates, both sides verify. Code signing at deployment. Container images checked against a verified signature before they run. Dependency integrity hashing in the build pipeline. On every measure applied at the boundary, a verified system. A developer's credentials are phished. The attacker authenticates to a low-privilege internal monitoring service. That service sits inside the perimeter. Inside the perimeter, nothing checks again. The monitoring service communicates with a time series database over an internal network path. No token, no mutual authentication. A shared credential in an environment variable available to every process in the cluster. It reads from a configuration service that distributes settings across the stack. No check on which service is requesting or whether the requesting service is in scope for the data it receives. It can push to a shared metrics aggregation layer that downstream services read and act on. An attacker inside the monitoring service can read cluster-wide configuration, push false metrics to influence downstream service behavior, and probe adjacent internal APIs over a network that treats them as a trusted peer. The perimeter was verified. The interior was not built for an adversary. This is the architecture most real systems have. Verification concentrates at the edges, at the boundary points where external traffic enters, where software crosses the deployment perimeter, where third-party packages are admitted. Inside those boundaries, a different model takes over: trust. The assumption that anything present was legitimately admitted and can be interacted with accordingly. The two spaces have names worth using precisely. The verification perimeter, the set of checks at the boundaries of a system. The trust interior, the space inside where verification has been replaced by assumption. Most security tooling, most audits, and most attack surface reviews focus on the first. Most lateral movement happens through the second. Tracing the verification perimeter in a typical production stack makes its shape concrete. At the network boundary, TLS chain verification, host name validation on well-configured clients, certificate revocation checking where explicitly enabled. At the application boundary, JWT or OAuth validation at the API gateway, API key enforcement on external endpoints, web application firewall rules on inbound requests. At the deployment boundary, container image signature verification against a managed key, package integrity checks pulled at build time. Software composition analysis where the pipeline was built to require it. Each is a real check. Each confirms a real property about something entering the system. The verification perimeter is not nothing. What sits behind it is a different kind of system. Service-to-service communication inside most production environments relies on network position, the assumption that another service on the internal network is a legitimate peer. Database connections authenticate with a stored credential that identifies access rights but does not identify the calling service or bind the credential to it. Message queues accept messages from any producer with network access to the queue and forward them to every consumer, with no verification of origin or content integrity. In Kubernetes environments, pods with access to the cluster API server can enumerate service accounts, read secrets within their namespace, and, depending on RBAC configuration, reach significantly further. These are not misconfigurations. They are the normal interior of a system optimized for internal communication, not designed to resist an adversary that is already present. The trust interior was a deliberate design choice, not an oversight. In traditional bounded network architectures, the interior was protected by not being reachable. Anything inside had been admitted through a controlled perimeter, and the perimeter had limited auditable entry points. The interior did not need to verify because access to the interior was itself a verified condition. That model made sense when the perimeter was a well-defined network edge. cloud infrastructure, container orchestration, and the operational complexity of modern distributed systems changed the geometry. The perimeter now includes external API integrations, third-party SaaS connections, CA/CD pipelines with credentials scoped to production environments, and developer access from endpoints that are not managed by the organization. The number of ways something can be inside the perimeter without having passed a meaningful verification check has grown with every integration and every access path added to the stack. The irony is structural. An organization that has invested heavily in perimeter verification has a stronger basis for trusting the interior, which reinforces the assumption that the interior does not need its own verification model. The more comprehensive the boundary checks, the more confidently the interior can treat presence as legitimacy. The more confidently the interior treats presence as legitimacy, the further an attacker who has passed one boundary check can move. The 2019 Capital One breach followed this path directly. An SSRF vulnerability in a web application component allowed an attacker to make requests from inside the network to the EC2 instance metadata service. That service returned IAM credentials to any co-located process that asked for them. It did not verify which process was asking or whether the request was legitimate. The credentials provided access to over 100 S3 buckets. None of those buckets had a verification layer that distinguished a request carrying legitimately issued credentials from one carrying the same credentials after extraction. The boundary had been passed. The interior did not check again. The 2020 SolarWinds compromise followed the same structural path at larger scale. The signed, verified update was the boundary admission, the deployment check that 18,000 organizations performed and that produced the correct result. What the update arrived into was an interior that treated anything admitted through the verified update process as a legitimate system component. The malicious code moved laterally through those trust interiors, in many environments for weeks or months, through a space that had no verification model able to distinguish legitimate system activity from attacker activity. The verification perimeter is the part of a system that gets built, tested, and refined. It is where frameworks focus, where tooling concentrates, and where most organizations direct their security investment. What receives less attention is what the interior runs on once something has been admitted, and whether that model holds when what was admitted is not what the perimeter assumed it was. Most of what gets called a secure system is a perimeter surrounding an interior that has never been asked to defend itself.